Joining us now, Dean's Professor of Finance at the Robert H. Smith School of Business at University of Maryland, Michael Falkender. It's great to have you on. Can you just tell us a little bit, Professor, about the hearing that went down yesterday, what sparked it and how sort of pessimistic it was about the dollar's role?
Sure, great to be with you. The hearing was looking at how do we maintain the dollar as the world's reserve currency. And the consensus among the panelists was that while there's not really an immediate threat of anybody else replacing us, if for no other reason that nobody else has the market depth and the trust of international investors, there are some long-term concerns. And I'd say they came down to three different categories. The first is the one I focused on in my testimony, which is that we need to get our fiscal house in order. To the extent that foreign investors, to the extent that reserve banks want to hold dollar-denominated securities, they want to make sure that they're going to store value. There are going to be claims to a strong economy going forward, which means we need to keep policies in place that are low inflation and high growth, and that means getting our fiscal house in order. Second, we need to make sure that we're continually updating the regulatory environment such that firms can upgrade the payment system that we have so that we don't see an outsourcing of payment systems to other countries that are getting ahead of us in financial technology. And then third, we need to be somewhat prudent in our use of sanctions to not invite others to create alternatives to the dollar in order to evade sanctions. So a lot of focus on discussions of sanctions being multilateral and prudent in their usage so that they're not overused in encouraging countries to find alternatives.
And I think we should just say you were in the Treasury Department in the Trump administration. President Trump recently has been talking about a dollar crisis and the end of the dollar's reserve status and pointing to some policies by President Biden. Are you saying that, especially when Republicans talk about it now, it's just bluster? That it's not realistic. It's not happening right now.
It's not going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. Again, if for no other reason, there's nothing to replace it. There's not trust in the Chinese yuan as an alternative. And not only that, you have capital controls in and out of China that are going to make it difficult to serve as a world's reserve currency. As much as we have forecasted economic and fiscal difficulties here in the United States, so does Europe. And there's nobody else that is of sufficient size in order to compete.
Professor, do you think, sort of gaming it out, if there is someone who can at least present a competitive threat, is it a state actor or a more amorphous petrodollar, or is it something crypto-related in an area of tech that is still under innovation?
Yeah, so one of the discussions we had about crypto dollars, for instance, is that you're still going to need a state actor who is going to ensure conversion, right? So it's only good to have a petrodollar if, when there's a crisis, you're able to enforce conversion into the underlying commodity. And that usually is going to require a state actor. If not, who can you trust that's going to be there to do that conversion? And that's why there's concern. That's why I don't think China is going to be a credible offerer of such a thing, because is it really the case that if there were geopolitical conflict, China would actually turn over petroleum reserves or gold, whatever they choose to back their asset-backed currency with, instead of hoarding that in order to emerge from whatever geopolitical challenge there is? You have to trust that conversion will not be suspended. And I think there are very few out there that financial markets would trust to do that.